Vigilante holds a special place in the DC universe, and what started with Greg Saunders assuming the alias soon moved on to Adrian Chase, who remains relevant even today. The ongoing Peacemaker series also featured Adrian as a vigilante who idolizes the titular superhero and serves as his best friend. This is DC's hilarious alternative to Deadpool, and the second season of Peacemaker has made him a fan favorite, as actor Freddie Stroma aces the role as one of Peacemaker's most loyal companions. In this video, we'll take you through the entire life story of this moronic sociopath and also explore his unique anatomy and powers. That said, before we get too deep into things, we do have a quick request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Dark Origins in DC Comics. Let's start by talking about the original Adrian Chase from the comics because, honestly, his story is way darker than anything we see in the show. The Vigilante character actually has a long history in DC Comics, with the first version appearing way back in 1941 in Action Comics number 42. That was Greg Saunders, a cowboy-style vigilante. But the Adrian Chase version we're talking about today was created by comics legend Marv Wolfman and George Perez, first appearing in the New Teen Titans number 23 in September 1982. In the comics, Adrian Chase wasn't an enthusiastic busboy, he was a successful Manhattan district attorney who had everything going for him. He was born into wealth and privilege, the son of prominent New York attorney Charles Chase. This guy was an overachiever from the get-go. He was on the 1960 United States Olympic track team and graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law School. He started out in corporate law at his father's firm, but eventually moved to a legal aid office on Manhattan's Lower East Side because he wanted to make a real difference. Adrian was married to Doris Chase and they had 2 children together. He worked closely with the Teen Titans and was particularly focused on taking down the Scarapelli crime family, but then tragedy struck in the most brutal way possible. Anthony Scarapelli, the mob boss Adrian was investigating, planted a bomb in the Chase family home. The explosion killed Adrian's wife Doris and both of their children. Adrian survived, but here's the chilling part. He actually died for 7 minutes during the bombing, and the explosion lodged shrapnel in his heart. This is where Adrian's transformation begins, and it's nothing like the cheerful psychopath we know from Peacemaker. The comic book Adrian was consumed by grief and rage. He realized that the justice system he'd dedicated his life to was failing. Criminals were getting off on technicalities, and the legal system couldn't touch people like Scarapelli. So he made a decision that would define the rest of his tragic story. He would become vigilante and deliver his own brand of justice. The supernatural origin of his powers. After his family's murder, Adrian was approached at his wife's grave by a mysterious hooded woman named Lynn. In what sounds like something straight out of a mystical horror story, Lynn drove Adrian west in a van and forced him to walk for 4 days through the desert. Deep beneath the desert sands, in a hidden cavern, Adrian was greeted by 3 spirits, victims of evil who were not content to gracefully die. These spirits were named Bloody Knee, Chaka, and Chastity. Adrian spent 6 months with these supernatural entities, enduring incredible physical and spiritual trials that would have broken most people. These weren't just training exercises, they were mystical ordeals that fundamentally changed him on a cellular level. When he emerged from this supernatural boot camp, he had gained new powers and a twisted sense of purpose. The spirits had given him accelerated healing abilities and enhanced physical capabilities, transforming him from a regular district attorney into something far more dangerous. The comic version of Vigilante initially followed a no-killing rule, similar to Batman, using non-lethal weapons to disable his opponents. But as his story progressed, Adrian became increasingly violent and mentally unstable. The weight of his actions, the people he hurt, and the realization that he was becoming the very thing he fought against slowly drove him insane. The tragic end of comic book Adrian Chase. The comic book Adrian Chase's story is one of the most genuinely tragic in DC Comics history. Throughout his Vigilante series, which ran for 50 issues, Adrian was constantly tormented by the morality of his actions. He would regularly question whether what he was doing was justice or just revenge dressed up in noble intentions. The psychological toll was immense. He was alternating between bouts of enraged violence, paranoia, and terrible remorse for his actions. Things got even worse when 2 of his friends, Judge Alan Wells and bailiff Dave Winston took up the vigilante mantle without his knowledge while he was trying to step away from the role. Wells became extremely violent and even killed a police officer, forcing Adrian to kill his own friend to stop him. Then Winston, who tried to use less violent tactics, was murdered by Peacemaker right in front of Adrian. This pushed Adrian completely over the edge. He resumed his vigilante role, but now he was completely unhinged, willing to kill even innocent people if they got in his way. His mounting guilt and the realization that he had become a monster culminated in one of comics' most shocking endings. In Vigilante number 50, published in February 1988, Adrian Chase put a .44 Magnum under his chin and pulled the trigger, committing suicide. The series literally ended with the titular character taking his own life, which was absolutely unprecedented for superhero comics at the time. How James Gunn reimagined the character. Now, fast forward to 2022, and James Gunn completely reimagined this character for the Peacemaker series. And honestly, what Gunn did with Adrian Chase is nothing short of genius. He took this dark, tragic figure and turned him into something completely different while still maintaining the core essence of what makes Vigilante interesting. The Peacemaker version of Adrian Chase, brilliantly played by Freddie Stroma, is a completely different animal. Instead of being a successful district attorney driven by tragedy, this Adrian is introduced as a restaurant busboy who works at a local diner. He's not motivated by personal loss. Instead, he's motivated by an almost childlike sense of justice and an obsessive admiration for Peacemaker. This version of Adrian left thousands of voicemails on Peacemaker's phone while Chris was in prison, desperately trying to connect with his hero and perceived best bud. What makes this version so fascinating is that while the comic book Adrian was driven to vigilantism by trauma and grief, the Peacemaker Adrian seems to have been born with a fundamentally different moral compass. He sees the world in absolute black and white terms. Bad people deserve to die, good people deserve to live, and there's no gray area in between. This moral literalism makes him both terrifying and oddly endearing. The recasting of the character during production actually worked out perfectly. Chris Conrad was initially cast as Adrian Chase and shot 5.5 episodes before leaving due to creative differences. Freddie Stroma stepped in and completely made the role his own, bringing a quirky, charming energy that perfectly balanced Adrian's sociopathic tendencies with genuine likability. Adrian's major story arc in Peacemaker Season 1. Allow us to walk you through Adrian's journey in the first season of Peacemaker because it's honestly one of the best character arcs in the whole show. Adrian first appears in Episode 2, showing up at Peacemaker's trailer in full costume, desperately wanting to befriend Chris and help him with his mission. What's immediately clear is that this isn't a partnership between equals. Adrian looks up to Peacemaker with an almost worshipful devotion. Throughout the season, Adrian serves as both comic relief and genuine emotional support for Peacemaker. When Chris is doubting himself and struggling with the moral implications of his mission to eliminate the alien butterflies, Adrian is there with unwavering enthusiasm and violent solutions. He doesn't understand Chris's internal conflicts because, to Adrian, the mission is simple. Bad aliens are threatening Earth, so they need to die. One of Adrian's most significant moments comes during the team's first major mission to assassinate Senator Royland Goff and his family. When Peacemaker hesitates to kill children, even ones possessed by aliens, Adrian doesn't hesitate for a second. He takes Peacemaker's gun and kills Goff's wife and children without any apparent emotional impact. The scene perfectly establishes Adrian's moral framework. He doesn't see these as children, he sees them as threats that need to be eliminated. Adrian's devotion to Peacemaker reaches its peak when he discovers that Chris's father, Augie Smith, is psychologically manipulating and abusing his son. Adrian makes the incredibly dangerous decision to get himself arrested and thrown into the same prison as Augie with the explicit goal of killing Peacemaker's father. This isn't just loyalty, this is someone willing to put himself in moral danger to free his friend from an abusive relationship. The prison storyline is where we really see the depths of Adrian's commitment. He fails to kill Augie during his first attempt, but his willingness to try shows how far he'll go for Peacemaker. Later, when Augie escapes and becomes the White Dragon, Adrian is instrumental in the final confrontation, ultimately helping Chris to bring Augie down once and for all. Season 2 and Dimensional Adventures. In Peacemaker Season 2, Adrian's story takes some fascinating turns that further develop his character while maintaining his core personality. The season introduces interdimensional elements, and this development puts Adrian at the center of the new threats the team faces. One of the more surprising aspects of Season 2 is the mention of Adrian's brother, Gut Chase, who is referenced as being connected to Adrian's origins as Vigilante. While the show hasn't fully explored this relationship yet, it suggests that Adrian's path to becoming Vigilante might have family connections that we haven't seen before. The interdimensional storyline also allows us to explore different versions of characters, including an alternate version of Peacemaker and Vigilante. Adrian's reaction to his alternate reality self and his unwavering loyalty to his specific Chris Smith shows the depth of his attachment and how his worldview handles challenges to his moral certainties. Adrian's unique anatomical features. Now let's get into the really interesting stuff. Adrian's physical characteristics and what makes him unique from an anatomical standpoint. The Peacemaker version of Vigilante has some fascinating physical traits that set him apart from regular humans, and some of these seem to echo the supernatural elements from his comic book origins. First, let's talk about his physical appearance. Freddie Stroma's Adrian is quite handsome, with brown hair, brown eyes, and a clean-shaven face. He's strong and physically fit, though nowhere near as large and imposing as Peacemaker himself. But here's where things get interesting. Adrian seems to have an almost supernatural resilience to physical damage that goes beyond what you'd expect from even the most well-trained humans. Throughout the series, we see Adrian take damage that should incapacitate or kill a normal person, only to bounce back with minimal recovery time. In the Season 1 finale, after being caught in an explosion and then shot, Adrian tells the medical team that he just needs a good nap to recover. When we see him in the hospital, he has no visible marks or wounds on his body, despite having been severely injured just hours before. This isn't just tough guy bravado, there's something genuinely unusual about Adrian's physiology. His skin seems to heal at an accelerated rate, leaving no scars or lasting damage from injuries that would permanently mark most people. His bone density also appears to be above normal, allowing him to withstand impacts that would shatter most regular human bones. The mystery of his healing powers. The big question that fans have been debating since Season 1 is whether Adrian actually has supernatural healing abilities, and the evidence seems to strongly suggest that he does. In the comics, Adrian's healing factor was explicitly supernatural, granted by 3 spirits who trained him in the desert. The Peacemaker version seems to have similar abilities, though the show has been deliberately vague about their origin. Let's break down the evidence for Adrian's healing factor. In Episode 7 of Season 1, Adrian is caught directly in a grenade explosion that leaves his face bruised, burned, and cut. Within about 20 minutes, he's completely fine with no visible injuries. This isn't something you can explain away with adrenaline or pain tolerance. His actual wounds disappeared. The most dramatic example comes in the Season 1 finale, where Adrian is shot and should be bleeding out, but instead of passing out or going into shock, he maintains consciousness and continues to fight. Later, at the hospital, the medical staff are amazed at his recovery. He literally jumps out of a hospital window at the end of the episode, something that would seriously injure most people, but Adrian treats it like stepping off a curb. What's particularly interesting is that Adrian himself seems only partially aware of his abilities. He knows he recovers faster than most people, but he doesn't seem to fully understand the supernatural nature of his healing. He treats it casually, and as a result, the series often treats it as a joke. How do his enhanced physical capabilities work? Beyond his healing factor, Adrian displays several other enhanced physical capabilities that suggest he's operating at a level above normal human limits. His pain tolerance is extraordinary. He can function normally with injuries that would incapacitate most people. This isn't just mental toughness, though that's certainly part of it. His nervous system seems to process pain differently, allowing him to compartmentalize physical trauma in ways that shouldn't be possible. Adrian's reflexes and reaction time are also notably enhanced. In combat situations, he demonstrates an almost precognitive ability to avoid attacks and respond to threats. His hand-eye coordination is exceptional, making him an incredibly accurate marksman with various firearms. During action sequences, Adrian moves with a fluidity and speed that suggests his muscle fibers and nervous system are operating at peak efficiency. His endurance is another area where Adrian exceeds normal human limits. He can maintain high-intensity physical activity for extended periods without showing signs of fatigue. This suggests enhanced cardiovascular and respiratory systems, possibly including increased lung capacity and more efficient oxygen processing. Combat skills and martial arts mastery. Adrian's combat abilities are truly impressive and suggest years of intensive training, though the show has never explained where or how he acquired these skills. He's proficient in multiple martial arts disciplines, combining striking techniques with grappling and submission holds. His fighting style is fluid and adaptable, allowing him to switch between different approaches depending on the situation. What makes Adrian particularly dangerous in combat is his complete lack of hesitation or moral restraint. While other fighters might hold back or show mercy, Adrian fights with the intention of permanently neutralizing threats. This psychological advantage, combined with his physical capabilities, makes him incredibly effective in violent confrontations. Adrian is also a master of weapons, particularly firearms and bladed weapons. His marksmanship skills are exceptional, allowing him to make precise shots under high-stress conditions. He's comfortable with a wide variety of weapons, from handguns to rifles to improvised weapons, suggesting extensive training or natural aptitude. The Vigilante mask and costume. Let's talk about Adrian's iconic costume and mask because they're not just fashion choices, they're integral to his identity as Vigilante. The costume design for the Peacemaker version maintains the classic blue and black color palette from the comics, but updates it for a more realistic tactical look. The suit appears to be made from advanced materials that provide both protection and mobility. The most distinctive feature is Adrian's mask, which covers his entire face and gives him an intimidating, almost alien appearance. The mask isn't just for concealing his identity, it seems to serve psychological functions as well. When Adrian puts on the mask, he becomes fully committed to the Vigilante persona with all the violence and moral certainty that entails. Freddie Stroma has mentioned in interviews that wearing the costume genuinely affects his performance, helping him tap into the character's more aggressive and confident aspects. The mask, in particular, allows him to be more physically expressive while maintaining the character's mysterious and threatening presence. Psychological profile and mental abilities. Can we consider him to be normal? While we've been focusing on Adrian's physical capabilities, his psychological makeup is equally fascinating and arguably even more important to understanding the character. Adrian displays several traits that suggest his brain operates differently from most people, though the show has been careful not to explicitly label or diagnose him. Adrian processes social cues and emotional information in ways that often seem disconnected from typical human empathy. He struggles to read facial expressions and body language, often taking things literally when others are being sarcastic or metaphorical. This moral certainty gives him psychological advantages in high-stress situations where others might hesitate or second-guess themselves. There's been significant fan discussion about whether Adrian might be neurodivergent or on the autistic spectrum, and this has become one of the most debated aspects of his character. James Gunn and Freddie Stroma have addressed these discussions, explaining that while they understand why fans see these traits in Adrian, they've chosen not to explicitly label the character in these terms. What's clear is that Adrian's brain works differently from neurotypical individuals. His hyper-focus on justice and his relationship with Peacemaker, his literal interpretation of social situations, and his difficulty reading emotional cues all suggest neurological differences. However, these traits are presented as part of what makes Adrian unique rather than as limitations or disorders. Adrian's relationship with violence. Understanding his psychology. One of the most fascinating aspects of Adrian's character is his relationship with violence, which is fundamentally different from other characters in the show. While Peacemaker struggles with the moral implications of killing, even when it's necessary for his mission, Adrian approaches violence with an almost childlike enthusiasm. This isn't sadism in the traditional sense. Adrian doesn't enjoy causing pain for its own sake. Instead, he sees violence as a tool for achieving justice, and he takes genuine satisfaction in successfully completing what he sees as righteous missions. His enthusiasm for violence is tied to his belief that he's making the world better, not to any psychological need to hurt people. This perspective makes Adrian both more dangerous and, paradoxically, more trustworthy than characters who might be more conventionally moral. His violence is predictable because it follows clear rules, even if those rules are oversimplified. You always know where you stand with Adrian. If he considers you a good person, you're completely safe. If he considers you bad, then there's no reasoning with him. Marvelous verdict! How Peacemaker immortalized the character. Adrian Chase, as Vigilante, represents one of the most successful character adaptations in recent superhero media. By taking the dark, tragic elements of the comic book character and reimagining them through a different lens, James Gunn has created someone who honors the source material while being completely fresh and original. Adrian's unique anatomy, mysterious powers, and complex psychology make him far more than just Peacemaker's sidekick. He's a fully realized character with his own fascinating mythology. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of Vigilante and his narrative in the Peacemaker universe, and also let us know your views on where you want his story arc to head next season, if we get a next season. Sounds like that's a little up in the air. As always, if you enjoyed our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.